Your old pal Tom here at the Tom Gulley Show with yet another of our cold opens. This one, man, there's a lot to go over. And I mean a lot. Late breaking. Something that happened 45 seconds ago, as a matter of fact. Yeah, 45 seconds ago, I got a knock on my door. And there's two people standing there, and they have those big giant bags, you know, that food delivery people have. And one of them, the guy, and incidentally, it's kind of cold here in Dallas right now. So they're bundled up, man. They're wearing all sorts of stuff. There's a guy, and then there's a gal. And they're, I'd say, probably around 40. And the bag is filled to the brim with food. And I'm thinking, I didn't order anything. And so I'm like, no, you know, cuisine aquí or whatever. And I can't even get through this. The people try to explain to me, and they're not obviously first language English speakers. They start saying something. It's like whistle, and I'm like whistle. I'm going through my Spanish, you know, restaurant Spanish level in Rolodex in my head, and I'm like, "Are you sure it's uno? And they no. We sell, and I'm like, "You're selling this food door to door. You're going from door to door to door, selling the food." See, and I'm like, no. A woman showing me an app, one of the food apps, which confused me, but it was for a restaurant called Receta, not Receta like in California. It was Receta, and I'm like, what the. Anyway, later on I'm going to tell you about Tom Waits. And this is a big show for me because Tom Waits is a hero of mine. I love Tom Waits. He's the greatest. I guess that was a Tom Waitsian experience. Somewhat Leviticusly Deuteronomous. Oh, by the way, I have an update for you on one of the past shows. I told you about the Indiana State Fair Coliseum explosion. I told you what a big deal it was. And I told you about the emergency responders and stuff. Well, guess what? I have a personal family story about this that I didn't know of till I mentioned it to somebody else. So my mom was a nurse at St. Vincent's Hospital in Indianapolis, and she had gotten off work and was eating at a popular diner in Indianapolis, corner 38th Street, and I want to say Fall Creek Parkway. Might have been Keystone, but I think Fall Creek Parkway. And it's called the TP. The TP. Their big sandwich was the Big Chief. The Big Chief was the sandwich there. And explosion happens, and some people came in and said, because they knew that's where a lot of people went, and they said, look, we need you to come back to the hospital. Because they were going to have this influx, 400 injured, 81 killed. And my mom said, well, I would like to, but my husband, he's, and the guy says, give me your number, I'll call him. So he calls my dad and says, hey, your wife's not going to be home. She's taking care of these people. Then, of course, she went to the hospital, and they said, well, we already have enough. And so she went home. I know the ending of the story is not that great, but still. Also today, sad news, which will require me to do a Saturday and a Sunday show. Sunday is already all in the family. Saturday, we are going to be doing a show on Joe Ely, the legendary Texas musician, performed with Springsteen, The Clash, a lot of different people. And he passed away today. Been a rough week. Anyway, what'll make it a little better for our audio podcast listeners, which is why we do this cold open, are the two songs I'm going to play you right now. And then we are going to launch. And you guys are only getting one channel of sound in your left ear. Well, I'll change that for the show. Sorry. Sorry, but the food people threw me off my game. I'm sorry. Let's just play some music and then we'll do the show.
When the daylight's fading and the world feels wrong, there's a voice on the airwaves, steady and strong. From the heart of the internet's wild frontier, Tom Gulley's talking, pull up a chair. He's got stories, he's got takes, he's got calls rolling in. From the tales of the weird to the shape of the spin. If you're tired of the noise and the nonsense online, there's a seat in the Gulley verse. Come take your time. The show must go on. The show must go on. With the mic burning bright through the dusk to the dawn. Yeah, whatever goes wrong, the Tom Gulley Show lives on. The show must go on. He's the radio outlaw with a charm so sly, a storyteller's cadence and a wink in his eye. From the ghosts in the attic to the news of the day, Tom breaks it all down in his signature way. He's the king of the ramble, the lord of the yarn. He'll take you from evening straight through to dawn, with callers so strange you'd swear they're a bit. But Tom never wavers, he just rolls with it. The show must go on. The show must go on. With the mic burning bright through the dusk to the dawn. Yeah, whatever goes wrong, the Tom Gulley Show lives on. The show must go on. So grab your Dr. Pepper and settle in tight. Tom's firing up the airwaves tonight. Whether chaos or calm, he keeps steering the ship with a quip, a riff, and that Gulley grip. The show must go on. The show must go on. Through the static and storms, every dusk, every dawn. From the heart of the net to the edge of beyond. The Tom Gulley Show lives on. Yes, the show must go on. Snow is falling soft tonight, windows glowing warm and bright. But Christmas doesn't feel the same till I hear that golden name. Tom Gulley on the radio, spinning tunes that steal the show. It's a very Gulley Christmas. Every heart begins to shine. Even spiders start to shiver in their webs like silver lines. Yeah, very Gulley Christmas. Hear that rhythm, sweet and good. Sweet and good. Bigfoot's listening from the treetops, grooving deep within the wood. Frost is dancing on the pane, candles flicker in the lane. Spiders sway with all they small. Feels that gully Christmas call. It's a very gully Christmas, and the world is feeling right. Feeling right. Spiders spinning festive threads, Bigfoot dancing out of sight. Yeah, very gully Christmas. Let the season sing on through. Tom Gulley brings the soul and cheer like only he can do.
Hey everybody, what's going on? What's hot? What's hip? What's happening? What's shaking? Tonight, let me tell you about Tom Waits. Now, enjoy my voice in both channels of your ear. I am so sorry, especially to those people listening on the podcast version of the show. Look, the people came right as I was about to, so I didn't switch and the thing was, anyway. Hey, do me a favor before we get going on too much further, and that is like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all the very free things. They only cost you a click. That help us out with the algorithm, the almighty, all-powerful, all-knowing algorithm. By the way, the algorithm changed 10 ways. I did some research in it. It's all messed up. But that being said, we also have the PayPal. And this is in the description of our YouTube show. Where you give the most, I get the most. Google don't get nothing. Because they haven't been good this year. And also, and this is big. This is really big. This is big. Right this minute, in our show store on Cafe Press. And that's there in the YouTube description. Also at the TomGulleyShow.com in the shop. 40% off. 40. Plus free shipping. Best I can do for the holidays. So get yourself something nice. Get yourself something nice. And the biggest announcement I have before I get to some of the comments in our interactive chat room, I never thought I would see this day. I'm very gratified. The frequently critical, often wiseacre, certainly curmudgeonly, Terry Nee has acquired a membership to the Tom Gulley Show. Can we please all, I never thought it's just something that feels so good, hurts so bad. Anyway, let's get to some of your comments real quick, and then we'll dive into Tom Waits. Jared's here, says, happy to be here. I'm just catching up on the shows. I missed a lot. Well, Jared, don't worry. All of our shows are aggregated for on-demand viewing or listening here on YouTube or on Podbean, Apple Music, all over the place if you like the audio thing. And, so don't worry. Terry Nee says, good evening. And, of course, oh, man, the membership, Terry, really, I feel we're closer together than we've ever been. By the way, Terry, I think, is a moderator in the chat room of Bob Levy, the Reverend Bob Levy, who will be on this program Monday night, December 22nd. We'll be going over It's a Wonderful Life together. Towns is here, says, sorry I'm late. Happy to be here. Towns, no one is ever late to the Tom Gulley Show. This has been established scientifically. It's nobody's ever late. The chef is here. He's on the couch taking in the program. Johnny Brooks is here. Says, hashtag Gullyhead for life. Nice to have you here, Johnny. Gene, Mr. Gulley and Gulley guys and gals. Hello. And Gene, always a show when you're here. Always a show. Terry Nee says, reminds me of an 80s TV Christmas special. Yes, Jared said the Christmas song always brings a tear to his eye. It's already a holiday favorite for most people. The Mariah Carey people are ticked off that they didn't get to record it. They really, really are. Turkatron is here. Hey now, I'm not going to dox her, but Turkatron, good to see you. Homegirl. Chef says, I try to post it on my Facebook like I always do, and it won't let me. Well, maybe the Facebook people have wised up. I don't know. Tierney says, do you sell a shower curtain with your face on it? No, but that's a darn fine idea. We do sell a shower curtain with the face of Skant from Australia on it, but not me. Gene said, I told the boys I wanted a Tom Gulley shirt for Christmas. Well, now's the day for them to get it. Free shipping, 40% off. Jared's clapping. He says, welcome to the Gully heads, Terry. Yes, people are embracing him. Need to get the Gully clock so people know what time it is. And that's an agreement. Oh, Terry says, I've been a member for months and months. Well, but it just says, welcome to the Gullerinos here. If it was months and months, it would have said however many months. Did you allow your subscription to lapse? I forgive you. I forgive you. Not that you're asking for any forgiveness by any stretch of the imagination. All right, let's get into Tom Waits. Let's start this off. I got to just right out of the gate. You're going to want to write some things down or make a mental note if you're smart and don't need to write it down. But probably you should write it down. Before I say anything, I know a lot of you guys like to watch movies. You need to see Down by Law. I think it's my favorite movie ever. And hardly anybody has seen it. You could go out and get the Criterion Collection Blu-ray like I have. But I think there's places to see it for free online. Down by Law. It stars Tom Waits, legendary jazz musician John Lurie, and Roberto Benigni, and not many other people. It's not a lot of people in this movie. And so you definitely need to see it. I'm going to go ahead and show you Tom Waits, what he looks like now. He's kind of crazy looking there. But he's kind of crazy looking all the time, which is not a bad thing. This is Tom Waits, and if you've ever seen Tom Waits, this is him in high school. But he was born, Tom Allen Waits, back in December, on December 7th, by the way, which is the anniversary of Pearl Harbor. So in Pomona, California, he's got one older and one younger sister. His father, Jesse Waits, was a Texas native, and his mother, Alma Fern, hailed from Oregon and had Norwegian ancestry. She was a regular churchgoer, and she managed the household. Jesse taught Spanish at a local school and apparently was a drinker. Tom Waits later recalled his father was a tough one, always an outsider. They lived in Whittier, California. He recalled having a very middle-class upbringing, pretty normal childhood. He went to Jordan Elementary School where he was bullied. And there he learned to play the bugle and the guitar, and his father taught him to play the ukulele. During the summers, he would visit maternal relatives in Gridley and Marysville, California. Now, Marysville was one of the towns we mentioned in the case of the Yuba County Five. He later recalled that he had this uncle with a raspy, gravelly timbre that inspired his own singing voice. In 1959, his parents separated. His father moved away from the family home, and that was not fun for 10-year-old Tom Waits. Alma, she took her kids, and she went to Chula Vista, which is kind of a suburb of San Diego. The father would visit the family, taking his children on trips to Tijuana, which must have been an experience. In nearby southeast San Diego, Tom Waits attended O'Farrell Community School, where he started a school band called The Systems. He terms it White's Kids Trying to Get That Motown Sound. He developed a love of R&B and soul singers like Ray Charles and Wilson Pickett, as well as country music and Roy Orbison. Bob Dylan later became an inspiration. And He's placed transcriptions of Dylan's lyric on his bedroom walls in the past. Tom Waits says, I was 15 and I snuck in to see Lightnin' Hopkins. Amazing show. Every time he opened his mouth, he had that orchestra of gold teeth, and I was devastated. He walked through a door and slammed the door behind him, and on the door it said, I swear to God, keep out. This room is for entertainers only. And I knew at that moment I had to get into show business as soon as possible. I first saw James Brown in 1962 at an outdoor theater in San Diego, and it was indescribable. It was like putting a finger in a light socket. By the time he was studying at Hilltop High School in Chula Vista, California, he said he was kind of an amateur juvenile delinquent, interested in malicious mischief and breaking the law. He later said he was a rebel against the rebels, did not like the hippie subculture, which was growing in popularity in the 50s beat generation. Although he did dig he did dig the beat stuff, the Jack Kerouac, the Ginsberg, and the William S. Burroughs. In 1968, when he was 18, he dropped out of high school. He was an avid watcher of Alfred Hitchcock Presents and The Twilight Zone, and he enjoyed Lenny Bruce. He worked at Napoleon's Pizza Restaurant, National City, California, and both there and at a local diner developed an interest in the lives of patrons, writing down phrases and snippets of dialogue he overheard. He worked in the forestry service as a fireman for 3 years and served in the U.S. Coast Guard. Bet you didn't know that. He enrolled at Southwestern Community College in Chula Vista to study photography, thinking he'd be a photographer. Continued pursuing his musical interests, taking piano lessons, and he began frequenting venues around San Diego, being drawn into the city's folk scene. In 1969, he was hired as an occasional doorman for the Heritage Coffee House, which held regular performances for the folk musicians. I imagine they had hootenannies and such. He started to sing at the Heritage, and his set initially consisted of covers of Dylan and Red Sovine's Phantom 309, which is on the greatest album of all time I'm going to show you later, called Nighthawks at the Diner. Write it down. You can listen to it on YouTube. Nighthawks at the Diner. He does an amazing version of Phantom 309. In time, he started performing his own material. Parodies of country songs or bittersweet ballads influenced by his relationships, and those included Old 55 and I Hope That I Don't Fall in Love with You. And his reputation grew. He played other San Diego venues, supporting acts like Son Terry and Brownie McGee, legendary bluesmen. He did kind of get the gist, however, that San Diego offered very little opportunity for his career progression, so he started traveling up to L.A. to play at the Troubadour in West Hollywood, known as Hollywood to people with the ability to speak. Now, the Troubadour is a legendary venue, and was there in the autumn of 1971 that he came to the attention of Herb Cohen, right, who signed him to publishing and recording contracts. And the recordings which were produced under that agreement were released in the early 1990s. I have these. They're amazing. The Early Years and The Early Years Volume 2. In early 1972, after quitting his job, just quit his job at Napoleoni's to concentrate on his songwriting career, he moved to an apartment in Silver Lake, Los Angeles, a ne'er-do-well neighborhood known for its Hispanic and Bohemian communities, you see. Continued performing at the Troubadour, and there he met David Geffen, Anybody heard that name before? Geffen Records? Yeah. Well, he gave Waits a recording contract with his other record company, Asylum Records. Jerry Yester was chosen to produce his first album, with the recording sessions taking place in Hollywood's Sunset Sound Studio. Another legendary place. Oh, yeah. And the result was his first album, Closing Time, released in March of 1973, and it didn't really attract much attention, didn't sell well. His biographer, Barney Hoskins, noted that Closing Times was broadly in step with the singer-songwriter school of the early 1970s. Waits had wanted to create a piano-led jazz album, but Yester had pushed in more of a folk-oriented direction. An Eagles recording of Old 55 on their album On the Border brought Waits some money, some recognition, although he thought their version was a little antiseptic. To promote that debut with Closing Time, Waits and a three-piece band embarked on a U.S. tour where he was the supporting act for more established artists. He supported Tom Rush, and Danny O'Keefe, and Charlie Rich. Oh, yeah. Martha Reeves and the Vandellas. John P. Hammond. Returned to Los Angeles in June, feeling demoralized about his career. That month, he was the cover star of the free music magazine Music World. He started composing songs for his second album. Went to Venice Poetry Workshop to try out his new material in front of an audience. And even though he was eager to record this material, Cohen said, "Why don't you take over as the support act for Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention?" Yeah. So he joined the tour in Ontario, but found the audiences hostile. While on stage, he was jeered at and pelted with fruit. And he liked the Mothers of Invention, but was very intimidated by Frank Zappa himself. Yeah. At this point, Tom Waits, he moved from Silver Lake to Echo Park, spending much of his time in downtown L.A., continued to perform around the West Coast, getting as far as Denver. For his second album, Geffen wanted a more jazz-oriented producer, so he got Bones Howe, was another legend, for the job. Yeah. Howe recounts his first encounter with Tom Waits. He said, "I told him I thought his music and lyrics had a Kerouac quality to him, and he was blown away that I knew who Jack Kerouac was. I also told him I played jazz drums, and he went wild. Then I told him I was working for Norman Granz, and Norman found these tapes of Kerouac reading poetry from the Beat generation in a hotel room. I told Waits I'd make him a copy, and that sealed it. Recording for his next album, and this is the first album I ever got of Tom Waits, and it's one you should get. You should get all these records I'm going to tell you about right now, every damn one of them, and listen to them at least once before you go drinking or break up with somebody, or stop drinking and start seeing somebody. I don't know what your lives are like. Yeah. Recording sessions for The Heart of Saturday Night took place at Wally Heater's Studio 3 on Cahuenga Boulevard in Hollywood in April and May, with Waits thinking of the album as a sequence of songs about nightlife. The album was more widely reviewed than Closing Time had been. Waits later described in a very dismissive way as the album being very ill-formed, but I was trying. After recording Heart of a Saturday Night, he reluctantly agreed to tour with Zappa again, but once more faced very strong hostility from the audience. The kudos of having supported Zappa's tour, though, well, they bolstered his image in the music industry and helped his career. In October of 74, he first performed as the headline act before touring the East Coast in New York City, and he met and he befriended none other, Bette Midler, with whom he had a sporadic affair. Back in L.A., Cohen suggested that Waits produce a live album. Oh, yeah. And to this end, he performed 2 shows in a record studio, the Record Plant, in front of a small, invited audience to recreate the atmosphere of a jazz club. Again, Bones Howe produced and engineered it. He would produce and engineer all the Asylum releases of Tom Waits, and it was released 50 years ago as Nighthawks at the Diner in October of 1975. And if you don't listen to this album, man, you are missing out. You are depriving your life of an essential combustible component. An inebriated good evening to you all. Welcome to Raphael's Silver Cloud Lounge. Slip me a little crimson, Jimson. You gotta listen to Nighthawks at the Diner. Just the story. I can do a show on the story of Nighthawks at the Diner. Dig? All right. He followed this with the week's residency at the Sweeney nightclub, an off-Broadway style club in New York City. He appeared in December on the PBS concert show Soundstage. From March to May in 1976, he toured the United States, telling interviewers the experience was tough and he was drinking too much alcohol. In May, he embarked on his first tour of Europe. Did London, did Amsterdam, did Brussels, did Copenhagen. And then he returned to Los Angeles. He joined his friend Chuck E. Weiss. I got a good Chuck E. Weiss story. It's going to pop up here in a minute. And he moved into the Tropicana Motel in West Hollywood, which had an established reputation in rock music circles. Visitors noted his 2-room apartment there was heavily cluttered. He told the Los Angeles Times that you almost have to create situations in order to write about them, so I live in a constant state of self-imposed poverty. Our story will continue. Just as soon as I read some of this here, chat remarks. Let's see. Terry allowed his subscription to lapse. He says he can't write. Terry, it's okay. Most people don't read anymore, and even fewer write. Johnny Brooks says, great movie, boss. Oh, Johnny, you've seen Down by Law. Jared says, not even a real looker. Randy says, breaking the law. Sky is here. Technologically enamored with technology. Zombie Wolf is here from another show whose name dare not cross my lips. He says, my favorite Tom Waits album, Nighthawks at the Diner, The Inebriated Stroll, colder than the ticker-taker smile at the Ivar Theater. Yeah. Coffee wasn't strong enough to defend itself. Yeah. Warm beer and cold women. Chef says, I've been to the Troubadour once with my buddy Paul. It's great. Oh, Zombie says, bummer, I gotta go. Zombie, thanks for stopping in, man. We appreciate it. You taking time away from your various addictions and your dubious friendships. Be with us tonight. Appreciate that. That is Bette Midler. All right. Now, back to our story. back to our story. In July of 1976, Tom Waits recorded Small Change. He recalled it as a seminal episode in his development as a songwriter, the point where he became completely confident in the craft. The album was critically well received and was his first release to break into the Billboard Top 100 album list, peaking at 89. He made it. He's in there. Small Change, according to one critic, made it clear that Waits had evolved into a master storyteller, reflecting the influence of crime noir writers like Dashiell Hammett and John D. MacDonald. Arguably his first masterpiece, the album featured exquisite piano ballads such as Tom Traubert's Blues and The Piano Has Been Drinking, Not Me, the words jazz of Pasties in a G-string, and the tour de force tenor sax, accompanied by hucksterism of Step Right Up, Everything's a Winner, Bargains Galore, You Too Can Be the Proud Over, The Quality Goes In Before the Name Goes On. He received glowing and growing press attention. Profiled in Newsweek, Time, Vogue, and The New Yorker, he had become, to accrue, a cult following. He went on tour to promote the new album, backed by the Nocturnal Emissions. Yeah, that's the name of the band, the Nocturnal Emissions. Frank Vaccari, Chip White, and Fitz Jenkins. In reference to Pasties in a G-string, a female stripper would join him on stage. And in 1977, he started touring Japan for the first time. Now, back in L.A., way back there, he encountered various problems. A female fan who had recently escaped from a mental health institution in Illinois began stalking him and lurking outside his Tropicana apartment. In May, Waits and his close friend Chucky Wise were arrested for fighting with police officers in a coffee shop. They were charged with 2 counts of disturbing the peace, but were acquitted after the defense produced 8 witnesses who refuted the police officers' account of the incident. Waits sued the LAPD and 5 years later was awarded $7,500 in damages. How about that? Huh? July and August, he recorded his 4th studio album, Foreign Affairs. Yeah. I got to tell you, I considered putting a bounty of $500 out via PayPal to perform on this very program one of the songs from Foreign Affair on this program tonight. And I abandoned that thought when it struck me that most of the people that have, clandestinely arcane thoughts about this show would give me the 500 and then take it back through the miracle of PayPal. Yeah. Greg Edwards is here. He says, how's it go there, Mr. Gulley? No, he says, actually, how goes it there? But I was going to do Burma Shave. I don't know. Twist my arm. The album included I Never Talk to Strangers, a duet with Midler, with whom he was still in an intermittent at best relationship. She appeared with him at the Troubadour to sing the song, and the next day he repaid the favor by performing at a benefit at the Hollywood Bowl that Midler was involved with. Foreign Affairs was not as well received by critics as his predecessor, which is weird because I like Foreign Affair a little bit better than Small Change. And it did make the Billboard Top 100. Now that very year, and this will springboard my Chucky Wise story. This is Chucky Wise. Let's see here. That was the year. That was the year he began a relationship with the singer-songwriter Ricky Lee Jones. And their work and their styles influenced each other. And I don't know if you've ever heard the song Chucky's in Love by Ricky Lee Jones. How come you don't come around and PLP with me down at the meter no more? You know that song? Chucky's in love. Well, the Chuck E is not Chucky. It's Chuck E. And that Chuck E is Chucky Weiss. Yeah. Yeah, I'm saying that's it, Chucky Weiss. Yeah, that's how that happened. And by the way, at the beginning of that song, for those of you who wonder, how come you don't come around here and PLP with me down at the meter anymore? You might even wonder if that's a word and there's something else. No, it's PLP, and that means public leaning post. And it's a slang term for hanging out and talking with each other on the street. Anyway, yeah. In October of 77, he returned to touring with the Nocturnal Emissions. It was on this tour he first started using props on stage, like a street lamp, or really more not props so much as decoration, I guess. Again, he found the tour exhausting, and then he went on, checked out Japan again. Now, during these years, he was trying to broaden his career beyond music. So he befriended a guy, an actor and director, who you might know as Sylvester Stallone. Oh, yeah. And the result of that was his film debut as a drunken piano player in Sylvester Stallone's Paradise Alley, a movie most people think is awful, but I like. He also began writing a movie musical, although this project never happened. And in July of 78, he started recording sessions for his album Blue Valentine. And part of the way through the session, he replaced his musicians to create a less jazz-oriented sound. And he switched from a piano to an electric guitar as his main instrument. For the back cover, he used a picture of himself and Ricky Lee Jones leaning against his car, 1964 Ford Thunderbird. According to a critic, Waits gradually began writing about junkies and prostitutes instead of Skid Row drunks in songs such as Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis, which is actually a much more tender song than it may sound like, Red Shoes by the Drugstore, and his writing became ever more vivid, compact, and complex. And from the album, his first single, a cover of Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim's Somewhere from West Side Story, was released, but it didn't chart. For his Blue Valentine tour, Waits assembled a new band, and he also had a gas station built as a set for his performances. His support act on the tour was Leon Redbone. In April, he went to Europe again, making television appearances and press interviews, and there was a documentary they did on him in Austria. And then he went to Australia, came back to L.A. He was getting pretty dissatisfied with Asylum Records, who he felt had lost interest in him as an artist in favor of the more commercially apropos acts like the Eagles, Linda Ronstadt, Carly Simon, and Queen. After a phone call with their mutual friend, Chucky Weiss, Waits told Ricky Lee Jones, "Chucky's in love," and that was the inspiration for her song, Chucky's in Love. Her musical career was taken off, and after an appearance on Saturday Night Live, Chucky's in Love reached number 4 on the Chingles chart, the singles chart, straining her relationship with Waits. Their relationship was further damaged by little addiction on the part of Ms. Jones. Waits joined Jones on the first leg of her European tour, but then ended his relationship with her. Her grief at the breakup was channeled into the 1981 album Pirates. In September, Waits moved to Crenshaw Boulevard to be closer to his father before deciding to relocate to New York City. Initially, he lived at the Chelsea Hotel before renting an apartment on West 26th Street. On arriving in the city, he told a reporter he just needed a new urban landscape. I've always wanted to live here. It's a good working atmosphere for me. He considered writing a Broadway musical. Yeah. A rotoscope Waits performed The One That Got Away in the music video, Tom Waits for No One. Another little film thing happened, don't you know, for him. Let me see if I can find it here. Probably likely that I will. A gentleman by the name of Francis Ford Coppola asked Waits to return to Los Angeles to write a soundtrack for his forthcoming film, One from the Heart. I could do a whole show on One from the Heart. Many of you may know this. Coppola was hugely successful from The Godfather, and he did this sort of a musical called One from the Heart. And it didn't do too well at the box office. This is putting it mildly. Waits was excited but conflicted by the prospect. Coppola wanted him to create music akin to his early work, and he was trying to leave that behind, and so he thought it was an artistic step backwards. But he returned to Los Angeles to work on the soundtrack in a room set aside for the purpose in Coppola's Hollywood studios, and that style of working was new to him. He later recalled he was so insecure when he started sweating buckets, and he was nominated for the 1982 Academy Award for Original Music Score. Now, he was still contracted, and he owed Asylum, this time called Elektra Asylum, another album, so he took a break from that project to write an album that he originally called White Spades, but he recorded the album in June, and it was released in September as Heart Attack and Vine. The album was more guitar-based and had, according to Humphreys, a harder R&B edge than any of its predecessors. Again, it broke into the top 100, peaking at 96. But you're in there. You made it. You crossed the line. Reviews were generally good. Hoskin called it one of Waits' pinnacle achievements as an album. One of its tracks, Jersey Girl, was later recorded by a Mr. Bruce Springsteen. Waits was grateful both for the revenue that the cover brought him, but because he felt appreciated by a songwriter he greatly admired. Yeah. Now, while on the set of One from the Heart, Waits encountered Kathleen Brennan, a young Irish-American woman working as an assistant story editor. The two had previously met while he was filming Paradise Alley, and he would describe this encounter with Brennan as love at first sight, and they were engaged to be married within a week. In August of 1980, they married at a 24-hour wedding chapel on Manchester Boulevard in Watts before honeymooning in Tralee, a town in County Kerry, Ireland, where Brennan had family. By the way, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all those absolutely free things don't cost you a penny. Help us out with the algorithm. We're just a little show. The other shows, I'd like to say, bully us, say derogatory things, but the truth is they make no note of us at all. And that's probably for the best. But we'd like to be embroiled in a controversy of some kind, if only to be one of the gang. Not the Dabbleverse, though. Not that one. More of an intellectual, And nobody we've had controversy with before. Didn't enjoy that. Turkatron's asking, are you going to sing? I don't see $500 in my PayPal. Hold on. I'll get rid of that. Lucas Malago. I got to say thank you to Lucas Malago. He always retweets and reposts and all that. And I appreciate it very much, more than you can possibly imagine. I'm checking out the PayPal. Pretty sure nobody's going to, you know what I mean? I don't see that happening. And I think if it did, I know too many people that would like do it and then take it back like an hour after the, you know what I mean? That's why I abandoned the thought. It was a ludicrous notion to begin with. That was a ludicrous notion. Oh. I messed something up here. Yeah, it was a ludicrous notion to begin with. However, what's wrong with the ludicrous notion every now and then? Let's see here. No. Right now, I'm not gonna. It's one of those things, if I do it, it exists forever. I don't know if I got those kind of chops. I can tell you this, you would all be surprised. Maybe not pleasantly, but there would be surprise involved. So Tom Waits returns to Los Angeles, and he and Kathleen Brennan move into a Union Avenue apartment. His biographer notes Waits had found the stabilizing, nurturing companion he's always wanted, and that she brought him a sense of emotional security he had never known before. And at the same time, many of his old friends felt cut off after his marriage. Waits said of Brennan, she rescued me. Maybe I rescued her too. That's often how it works. Upshot is we both got into the same leaky boat. Maybe the weight drags it down because now you've two people sitting in it. Sorry, baby. But on the other hand, you got two people's imagination to patch it up again. Everybody knows she's the brains behind Pa, as Dylan might have said. I'm just the figurehead. She's the one steering the ship. Recording of his soundtrack for One from the Heart began in October of 1980 and continued until September of 1981. That's a long time. A number of tracks were recorded with duets with Crystal Gale. Waits had initially planned a duet with Midler, but she was not available. Film was released in 1982 to, as I mentioned, largely poor reviews. I got that sucker on Blu-ray. Waits makes a small cameo as a trumpet player in a crowd scene. But his soundtrack album was released by Columbia Records in 82, and he had misgivings about it, thinking it overproduced. But it did lead from Waits moving from a cult to an artiste at center stage. So now he's newly married, and his contract with Simon is done. And he decides it's time to artistically reinvent himself, and he wanted to move away from using Bones Howe as his producer, although they parted on good terms. It's just, hey, man, I need a change. And with Brennan's help, he began the process of firing Cohen as his manager, with he and Kathleen Brennan taking on the managerial responsibilities themselves. And he came to believe Cohen had been swindling him out of much of his earnings, later relating that I thought I was a millionaire, but it turned out I had like $20. He credited Brennan with introducing him to new music, most notably Captain Beefheart, a key influence on the direction in which he wanted to take his work. He later said that once you've heard Beefheart, it's hard to wash him out of your clothes. It stains like coffee or blood. She also introduced him to Harry Partch, composer who created his own instruments out of everyday materials, and Waits began to use images rather than moods or characters as the basis for his songs. He wrote the songs for his album Swordfish Trombones during a 2-week trip to Ireland, and he recorded it at Sunset Sound Studios and produced it himself. Brennan often attended and gave him advice. They were becoming quite the team, and Swordfish Trombones, one word, often abandoned the jazz sound characteristics of his earlier work, and it was his first album to not feature a saxophone, his first to have marimba. When the album was finished, he took it to Asylum, and they didn't want to release it. He wanted to leave the label. In his view, they liked dropping my name in terms of me being a prestige artist, but when it came down to it, they didn't invest a whole lot of time in me in terms of faith. Chris Blackwell of Island Records learned of his dissatisfaction and approached him offering to release Swordfish Trombones. Island had a reputation for signing more experimental acts like King Crimson and Rocky Music and Sparks. Waite did not tour to promote the album. Kathleen Brennan was pregnant. Although unenthusiastic about the new trend for music videos, he appeared in one for the song In the Neighborhood. One critic wrote that on Swordfish Trombones, Waite has made a breakthrough. He's found music as evocative as his words. His grumble of a voice now bounces off a peculiar set of horns and percussion and organs and keyboards, as if he led a Salvation Army band into a broken-down Hong Kong disco. It's like he shifted from monologues to screenplays. And according to another critic, Swordfish Trombones was the record where Tom Waits radically reinvented himself and reshaped the musical landscape. New Music Express named it the second best album of the year, and Spin Magazine in 1989 named it the second greatest album of all time. In 1983, Tom Waits, our boy, Tom Waits, he appeared in not one, not two, but 3 more Coppola films. He's a philosopher running a billboard store in Rumblefish, and as Buck Merrill in The Outsiders, and as the maitre d' in The Cotton Club. Waits later said Coppola is actually the only film director in Hollywood that has a conscience. Most of them are egomaniacs and money-grubbing bastards. In September, Brennan gave birth to their daughter, Kelismone. Waite was determined to keep his family life separate from his public image and to spend as much time as possible with his daughter. With Brennan and their child, he moved to New York City to be closer to Brennan's parents and Island's U.S. office, and they settled into a loft apartment near Union Square. Waits found New York City life frustrating, as many of us have. You know what I'm saying? Not for everybody. Although he met many new musicians and artists, he befriended John Lurie of the Lounge Lizards, and the duo began sharing a music studio in the Westbeth Artist Community Building in Greenwich Village. He began networking in the city's art scene, and at a party Jean-Michel Basquiat held for Lurie, he met the filmmaker Jim Jarmusch. This is big. This is big because he and Jim Jarmusch have had an association for a long time. Of course, Jim Jarmusch, the director of Down by Law and some other things I'll show you here, in which he included Tom Waits. Let's see here. Waits did the soundtrack for the documentary Streetwise about homeless youth in Seattle. It was another influence on the subject of his next album, Rain Dogs, which was recorded at RCA Studios in 1985. Rain Dogs. Yeah. Waits called the album kind of an interaction between Appalachia and Nigeria. Keith Richards played on several tracks. Richards later acknowledged Waits' encouragement of his debut solo album, Talk is Cheap. Rain Dogs also marked Mark Ribot's debut as a session guitarist. He played on many later Waits albums. Jean-Baptiste Mondino directed a music video of Downtown Train featuring boxer Jake LaMotta of Raging Bull fame. The song was subsequently covered by Patti Smith in 1987 and later by Rod Stewart, where it reached the top 5 in 1990. In 1985, Rolling Stone named Waits its Songwriter of the Year. Critic wrote that with Rain Dogs, he dropped his bedraggled lounge piano act and fused outsider influences, socialist decadence, pre-rock integrity from dirty old blues, etc., etc., etc. New Music Express named Rain Dogs the best album of the year. In September of 1985, his son Casey was born. Waits assembled a band and went on tour, kicking it off in Scotland in October before proceeding around Europe and then the United States. He changed the set list for each performance, and most of the songs chosen were from his 2 island albums. Returning to the U.S., he traveled to New Orleans to act in Jim Jarmusch's Yes, I'm Going to Show It Again, Down by Law. Now, Down by Law was written by Jarmusch with Tom Waits and John Lurie in mind. The film opened and closed with songs from Rain Dogs. Jarmusch noted that Tom and I have a kindred aesthetic, an interest in unambitious people, marginal people. The pair developed a friendship. Waits called Jarmusch Dr. Sullen, while Jarmusch called Waits the Prince of Melancholy. Waits devised a musical called Frank's Wild Years, loosely based on Frank's Wild Years from Swordfish Trombones. In late 1985, he reached an agreement that the play would be performed by the Steppenwolf Theater Company in Chicago's Blair Street Theater. Waits starred as Frank, who he described as quite a guy. Grew up in a bird's-eye frozen, oven-ready rural American town where Bing, Bob, Dean, Wayne, and Jerry are considered major constellations. Frank mistakenly thinks he can stuff himself into their shorts and present himself to an adoring world. He's a combination of Will Rogers and Mark Twain, playing an accordion, but without the wisdom they possessed. He has a poet's heart and a boy's sense of wonder with the world. A legend in Rainville since he burned his house down and took off for the big time. Now, the reviews were generally positive. Considered a run in New York City, but decided against it. Songs from the show were recorded for what you're looking at now, if you're watching the video, Frank's Wild Years, and released by Island Records in 1987. New Music Express ranked Frank's Wild Years 5th on its list of albums of the year. It was his first collaboration with David Hidalgo, who played accordion on Cold, Cold Ground and Train Song. After its release, he toured North America and Europe, the last full tour for 2 decades. Yeah. He continued interacting and working with other artists he admired. He was a great fan of the Pogues and went on a Chicago pub crawl with them in 86. In 87, he appeared as master of ceremonies on several dates of Elvis Costello's Wheel of Fortune tour, Be Still My Heart. He co-starred in Hector Babinko's Ironweed as Rudy the Kraut. He did that. He did. I thought I had that picture here. Hold on. But I don't. Yeah. He appeared as a hitman in Robert Dornheim's Cold Feet and lent his voice to Jarmusch's Mystery Train. Although Waits had provided a voiceover for a 1981 television commercial for Butcher's Blend dog food, he objected to musicians letting companies use their songs in advertising. He said that artists who take money for ads poison and pervert their songs. In November of 1988, he brought a lawsuit against Frito-Lay for using an impersonator performing Step Right Up in an ad for Doritos. Came to court in April of 1990, and Waits won the case. He received a $2.6 million settlement, a sum larger than his earnings from all of his previous albums combined. And this earned he and Kathleen Brennan reputations as tireless adversaries. Tireless. Yeah, tireless. Very tireless. Let me see here if we got any more. Goat says, Tom Gulley waits. I do quite frequently. The chef says, sorry, Tom, I got to go. Everybody say goodnight, Gracie. Good night, Gracie. Thanks for coming in, Chef. And Chef has become a member of the Gullerinos. Thank you. It's a very small monthly membership fee. He made an appearance. Yeah, he made an appearance as plainclothes policeman in the Jack Nicholson sequel to Chinatown called The Two Jakes. Damn fine movie. Damn fine. There's a scene in the Dresden, which is one of my favorite places in Los Angeles, in that, which is another thing I like about it. He played a disabled war veteran in Terry Gilliam's The Fisher King, had a cameo in Queen's Logic, played a pilot for hire in A Play in the Fields of the Lord. He appeared as himself fishing with John Lurie on Fishing with John, but many of you may remember this role. I think a lot of people first became aware of Tom Waits with this role, which is both awesome and unfortunate. That is, he played Renfield in Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992. Yeah. He played Earl Piggott, an alcoholic limousine driver, in Robert Altman's Shortcuts in 1993. And many people thought that was his best performance ever as an actor. I don't think you can get better than Down by Law, but what do I know? I'm not God. In 1991, Waits and his family moved outside to the far-flung edges of Sonoma. And his family later moved to a secluded house near Valley Ford after a bypass road was built near to their first Sonoma County house. Also in 91, 13 of Waits' 1971 pre-asylum recordings were released for the first time on the first volumes of mentioned earlier, Tom Waits, The Early Years. Tom Waits was angered at this, describing many of his early demos as baby pictures that he would not want released. Second volume with 13 more songs from 1971 was released in 1993. In 1992, Tom Waits released a soundtrack album to Jim Jarmusch's Night on Earth, good movie. Largely instrumental, it had been recorded at Prairie Sun Studio in Cotati. In 1992, Waits quit drinking alcohol and joined Alcoholics Anonymous. In the early 1990s, he took part in several charitable causes. And in 1992, he released his 10th studio album. Yeah, his 10th studio album called Bone Machine. And it was very industrial. 8 of the album's tracks were co-written with Kathleen Brennan. Oh, yeah. He did some videos Jim Jarmusch and Jesse Dillon directed videos for I Don't Want to Grow Up and Going Out West. Critics called it maybe his most cohesive album. The album's closing track, called That Feel, was co-written with Keith Richards. Bone Machine won the Grammy for Best Alternative Music Album. And in response, Tom Waits asked, alternative to what? Yeah. Let's see what we got going on in the chat room. Have I frightened everyone away with this long ramble? Please like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all those free things you can do to help us with the algorithm. The algorithm's cold. It don't care. Don't care about old Tom. Goat says, I forgot he was in Dracula. Doo is here in 3D. She says, hello, Tom in chat. It says, same here. She forgot he was in Dracula too. Dupa, thank you for the $5. Tom, tough question. If you had to pick a favorite, Elvis Costello versus Tom Waits. Ooh. That's like asking me if I'd rather have my heart removed or my brain removed. I don't think I could live without either one of them. I don't. Although I would say this, I would say that Elvis Costello is probably my favorite artist over my life because I did not encounter Tom Waits until later than Elvis Costello. Elvis Costello was like teenager type, was in, I was like 14. I encountered Tom Waits in my early 20s. Although Elvis Costello may be my favorite artist, my favorite, maybe two of my top 5 favorite albums are Tom Waits albums. So I don't know how you quantify that. I don't. Who would you rather have, your first love or your last love? I don't know. I can't pick. But Tom Waits' Nighthawks at the Diner and Tom Waits' Glitter and Doom. A hard time getting away from those. In 93, Kathleen Brennan, pregnant with Waits' third child, Sullivan, he decided to reduce his workload to spend more time with his children. And people thought, oh, he's sick or he's separated from her. And so for 3 years, he turned down all offers to perform gigs or appear in movies. But he did make several cameo and guest appearances on albums by musicians he admired. In February of 96, he held a benefit performance to raise funds for the legal defense of his friend Don Hyde, who'd been charged with distributing lysergic acid. He wrote Walk Away and The Fall of Troy for the soundtrack of Dead Man Walking. You know that movie, Dead Man Walking? Yeah. And Little Drop of Poison for The End of Violence. In 1998, Island released Beautiful Maladies, compilation of 23 Waits tracks from his albums with the company, selected by Waits himself. So after his contract with Island Records expired, Waits decided not to try to renew it, particularly because Chris Blackwell, the guy that signed him, had resigned from the company. He signed to a smaller record label, the one he's with now, I believe, called Anti, and there's a dash at the end of Anti. Recently launched as an offshoot of the punk label Epitaph Records, and he described the company as a friendly place. The president of Anti, Andy Calkin, said the label was blown away that Tom would even consider us. We're huge fans. Waits praised the label. Epitaph is a label run by and for artists and musicians, where it feels much more like a partnership than a plantation. We shook on the deal over coffee in a truck stop. I know it's going to be an adventure. And with that in mind, in 1999, he released Mule Variations. Yeah. I got a poster of one of the concerts from this tour framed somewhere in a labyrinth. He'd been recording the tracks at Prairie Sun since June of 1998. The tracks often dealt with themes involving rural life in the United States. Waits coined the term surreal, which is surreal and surreal, to describe the album's context. Mule Variations reached number 30 on the U.S. Billboard 200, the highest showing of a Waits album, and it was obviously well received. It won the Grammy Award for Best Contemporary Folk Album. As far as it being categorized as folk music, Waits said, "That's not a bad thing to be called if you got to be in some kind of category." Also in March of 1999, Waits gave his first live show in 3 years at the Paramount Theater in Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas. That's right. Austin, Paramount Theater in Austin, Texas. Yeah. At the part of the South by Southwest Festival. He then appeared in an episode of VH1's Storytellers. Later part of the year, he embarked on the Mule Variations tour, primarily in the U.S., but also featuring dates in Berlin. In October, he performed at Neil Young's annual Bridge School benefit concert. And in 1999, he appeared in Kinka Usher's comic book spoof, Mystery Men. Oh, my God, Mystery Men. Look, man, I like little movies. I like movies nobody else likes. And I got to tell you, Mystery Men is one of my favorite movies. And he plays the intrepid Dr. A. Heller, an eccentric, inventor living in an abandoned music park. In 2000, he began writing songs for an adaptation of Wojciech, which had been inspired by an earlier opera. Getting kind of heady here. Yeah. Getting on the big time. In May of 2001, he accepted a Founders Award at the 18th Annual American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. You know it as ASCAP, Pop Music Awards. At the same month, he joined singers Nancy and Ann Wilson of Heart, as well as Randy Newman, in launching a $40 million lawsuit against MP3.com for copyright infringement. Oh, yeah. In September of 2002, he appeared at a hearing on accounting practices in the music industry in California. And there he expressed satisfaction with his label, Anti, but declared more broadly that the record companies are like cartels. It's a nightmare to be trapped in one. Oh, by the way, he appeared in a really cool movie called Coffee and Cigarettes, which is nothing but a compendium of people having coffee and cigarettes and conversations. Weird conversations, interesting conversations, normal conversations. And his conversation, because people are kind of paired up having coffee and cigarettes. A Jim Jarmusch movie, of course. And he was paired up with Iggy Pop. Iggy Pop. Which kind of like, if you could have picked before the movie, who would you like to hear? Have a conversation, Iggy Pop and Jim Jarmusch? Yeah. And Tom Waits? Yeah. Yeah, I'd do that. I could do a show on that if I wanted to. I don't know if I want to. But I could do a show on that if I wanted to. Don't dare me. Released his 15th studio album, Real Gone, in 2004. It's called by one critic the roughest, most unkempt music to date. He was beatboxing because he was starting to get into hip-hop. You know, everybody does a little bit. Launched a tour in Vancouver before heading to Europe, where his shows were sellouts. His only London gig saw 78,000 applications for about 3,700 tickets. After several years without any film appearances, he played a gun-toting Seventh-day Adventist in Tony Scott's Domino. Later, he traveled to Italy to appear in Roberto Benigni, his co-star in Down by Law, and his The Tiger in the Snow. Next was Wrist Cutters, a love story, posing as an angel, posing as a tramp. Yeah. In 2006, he issued Orphans, Brawlers, Ballers, and Bastards, a 54-song, 3-disc box set of rarities, unreleased tracks, new compositions. And he said they were songs that fell behind the stove while making dinner. The first disc, Brawlers, consists of raucous rock and blues-based numbers. The second, Ballers, well, those are melancholy country songs and ballads. And the third, Bastards, are stories, spoken word pieces, and things he couldn't categorize. Let's see here. In 2009, he released the 2-disc Glitter and Doom. Well, I'll tell you about this record first. He released an album called Badass Me, which you should get. But Glitter and Doom Live. Okay? That tour started in the U.S. and moved to Europe. There's a single track from a whole bunch of different towns. Both of his sons played with him on the tour. At the June concert in El Paso, he was presented with the key to the city. In 2009, the album comes out. And Glitter and Doom Live is another one you should listen to on YouTube. Whole bunch of these albums, if you go to the Tom Waits page on YouTube, you can listen to them. I assume he makes a little money on it. He continued his acting. Played Mr. Nick in Terry Gilliam's The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. And for those of you who like action in your movies, he played the engineer, in the Book of Eli. Found himself into a similar situation to his early one with Frito-Lay in 2000 when Audi approached him asking him to use Innocent When You Dream for a commercial broadcast in Spain. He declined, but the commercial used music very similar to that song, so he undertook legal action, and a Spanish court recognized there had been a violation of his rights in addition to the infringement of copyright. The production company, Tandem Campmany Gouache, was ordered to pay compensation to Waits through his Spanish publisher. Later joked he got the name of the song wrong, thinking it was called Innocent When You Scheme. 2005, he sued another company, claiming that having failed to sign him to sing in their Scandinavian commercials, they hired a sound-alike singer. You can't do that. In 2007, the suit was settled, and Waits gave his proceeds to charity. Just gave him charity. In 2001, he completed a set of 23 poems, Seeds on Hard Ground. They printed limited edition chapbooks of the poems, along with his record label, to raise money for Redwood Empire Food Bank, a homeless referral and family support service in Sonoma County, California. As of January 26, 2011, 4 editions, each limited to 1,000 copies, sold out, raising $90,000 for the food bank. Yeah, that's what he did. Since 2012, though he didn't ever make any big formal announcement about retreating from a musical career, he really is focused on poetry and acting. He hasn't toured as a musician since 2008, hasn't issued any new music since 2011, but he still performs music occasionally. Very few widely spaced appearances by him at various events in 2010s and 2020s. And he does 1 to 3 songs. He was in the crime comedy Seven Psychopaths as a retired serial killer. Joined the Rolling Stones on stage in 2013 to duet with Mick Jagger on Willie Dixon's Little Red Rooster. Oh, that's a good song. Yeah. Over the years, he's made 6 appearances on The Late Show with David Letterman. And on May 14th, 2015, sang Take One Last Look on the show's 5th to last broadcast. Accompanied by Larry Taylor on upright bass and Gabriel Donahue on piano and accordion. And the horn section of the CBS Orchestra. Yeah. In 2018, he had a role in the Coen Brothers movie, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, a Western anthology film by the Coen Brothers. He appeared as the prospector. Sure did. He did that. He was in Robert Redford's very last movie. Well, Redford was in Endgame, but it was just for a second. His last real movie, where he was really in the movie for the movie, called The Old Man and the Gun. And then he appeared in Jim Jarmusch's zombie film, The Dead Don't Die. He did all of them things. Yeah. Concentrates now mostly on the acting and the poeting. I could get into his musical style and all of his influences. Irving Berlin, Cole Porter, Hoagie Carmichael, Frank Sinatra, Lord Buckley, Charles Bukowski was an influence. Howlin' Wolf. Dashiell Hammett, Merle Haggard, Thelonious Monk. One of Waite's favorite descriptions of his vocal style was Louis Armstrong and Ethel Merman meeting in hell. He uses very eclectic instruments these days. Credits his wife with inspiration. She's an opera buff and a bug collector. She's done a lot of things. She writes more from her dreams. I wrote more from the world or from the newspaper, and somehow it all works together. He credits his wife with helping him unify his eclectic musical instruments. Said, it's really my wife started helping me see you can find the place where Leadbelly and Schoenberg overlap. During the 70s, he had a brief relationship with comedian Elaine Boozler. Actually, a pretty good comedian. Intermittent, as we mentioned, with Bette Midler, Ricky Lee Jones. Yeah. 3 children with Kathleen Brennan. And after he married and had the kids, he became increasingly reclusive, and safeguarding the privacy of his life became very important to him. He was very accessible in the late 80s, early 90s, I know. I may have interviewed him over the phone. Very disappointing for me. I'm sure it was even more disappointing for him that he had to talk to me. During interviews, he deflects questions about his personal life, and he did that a lot at the beginning of his career because, frankly, he had created this persona which may not have been as much him as he was. Yep. When Barney Hoskins was researching his unauthorized 2009 biography, Low Side of the Road, A Life of Tom Waits, Waits and his wife asked people not to talk to him. Hoskins believed it was Brennan who was responsible for the wall of inaccessibility surrounding Waits. When asked about his religious beliefs, he said, with the God stuff, I don't know. I don't know what's out there any more than anybody else, which seems like a perfectly reasonable response to me. He's been determined to keep a distance between his public persona and his personal life. Jim Jarmusch described him as a very contradictory character, stating that he is potentially violent if he thinks someone's messing with him, but he's gentle and kind too. Guy that worked with him on Blue Valentine says he's a very pleasant human being, a very nice person. An essentially reticent man, reflective and surprisingly shy. Some would say almost gruffly heterosexual. During interviews, he avoids questions about his personal life, going off on tangents and thrown in trivia. I'll briefly go over some collaborations. This is almost over, kids. I'm sorry. But I'm loving Tom Waits. I'm always going to love Tom Waits. Listen to Tom Waits all day long today and many other days that I can't name them. Let's see here. Bruce Springsteen he's collaborated with. He joined Springsteen, Costello, K.D. Lang, and others in a tribute to, I think, Tom Petty and the dude from ELO, Jeff Lynne, in a tribute to Roy Orbison called Roy Orbison and Friends, A Black and White Night. Marianne Faithfull, Keith Richards, as we mentioned. Let's see who else here. Primus. Yeah, Primus. Ramblin' Jack Elliott. Chucky Wise, of course. John P. Hammond. Los Lobos. Keith Nordine of Word Jazz. And others. He's influenced many other artists. His songs have been used in film, television, and theater. When Robert Carlyle, you know him from Trainspotting, formed a theater, he named it the Rain Dog Theater after the Waits album. Yeah. Cabaret shows have been set to his songs, among them Robert Berdall's Warm Beer, Cold Women. Let's see here. He's written for the songs, for the soundtracks of Never Let Go, for American Heart, Walk Away, The Fall of Troy, for Dead Man Walking, Little Drop of Poison for The End of Vine. I'm not going to go through all these. There's too many of them. I'm not going to go through the discography. It's what it is. I covered it pretty good, I think. His acting credits, I think I covered those pretty well. I could talk for days and days. Oh, let's see if anybody gave me $500 to sing this song. Could have been a group effort. It's unlikely. When I do something like that, it's because I don't want to do it, not because I think it's going to happen. Let's see here. Because it lived forever. I get made fun of for it forever. And it's too easy to take back a PayPal donation. Sorry, kids. So I guess you don't get to hear me sing Burma Shave. The juvenile delinquent. Anyway. That's all I got to tell you about Tom Waits. Let's get to your remaining commentary. Oh boy, there's a bunch of them. People waving to Dupa. We do have the most cheerful chat room on the internet. It's verified by independent sources. By the way, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell. I don't know how many likes we got. We did have some viewers. The number's been dropping the longer I talk, which is traditional. But we only got 46 views. That's pretty bad. Dupa says, I love Bone Machine. What's he building in there? Yeah, that's an awesome one, Dupa. Dupa waving the goat. Alternative to what is a great line, to be honest. Oh, I could have done a whole bunch of Wait-isms. If you go to TomWaits.com or whatever his website is. There's a bunch of just his one-line observations. Read those. Go there. That's my way of doing something for Tom Waits. He's done a lot for me. All right. Tom, for me, it's a tie. Dupa, you and I, well, we've chewed some of the same dirt, as we like to say in the sports business. People saying hi, Terry Nee, laundry detergent. Yeah, laundry detergent. Goat says acid should be legal, man. Terry Nee says not the brown acid. Yeah, stay away from the brown acid. Goat says that sounds bad. Mystery Men still holds up. It really does. Mystery Men is great. Mystery Men is a wonderful film, and he's awesome in it. The Herkimer, the best non-lethal attack vehicle. I don't know what he said. It's right in there with the 500 other movies. Let's see here. Not the brown mystery. Tom, how about a top 10 show of your favorite concerts you've attended? Well, I'll write it down. I don't think anybody cares about things I've done in life, but I'll write it down. It's a good suggestion. Top 10 concertos. Concerts. Bing. All right. I actually sang Burma Shave 5-6 times today, thinking maybe. Goat says, Wrist Cutters isn't the worst movie. Terrible name. Saw that on Acid too. Whoa, dude. Hey, whoa. Damn, Tom Waits ain't playing around with copyright. He's suing everyone. Well, no, here's the thing. And that's, I think, an appropriate observation, but I don't know that it's exactly correct. What he does is, if you contact him and he says no, and then you go and do a thing that's identical to his thing, that's when he does it. That's when he does it. It's like, no, you called me and asked me to do this, and I said no, so then you rip me off. That's when he does it. It appears to me anyway. Dupa says, Waits has a strict policy against his music or voice being used to sell products, famously stating, if Michael Jackson wants to work for Pepsi, why doesn't he just get himself a suit and a tie? I assume is the ending to that. Goat says, Dupa says, I understand why it was disappointing to talk to him on the phone, but you got to talk to him. No, it was not disappointing at all. It was disappointing that I couldn't talk to him in person. I think he was next to a pool and they brought a phone. I can't remember all the details of it. I think I had to take a try and it didn't happen. And then I got a hold again another time and rescheduled. And I think I even said, why don't we just make it at a time you know you won't be doing nothing? I said, it's not going to be painful. I'm not going to ask you a question. Maybe one question someone's ever asked you before. And I promise I'll keep it on a clock. It won't take more than 15 minutes. I remember saying those words. Yeah. And it was a print article. It wasn't even a... Tormentary, says Dozen B. I don't know what that means. Tormentary. Dupa likes it. I'm confused, but Dupa likes it, so it's good. Goat says, where can we hear your interview with Mr. Waits? On a cassette tape in a box wrapped in Viz Queen in Peru, Indiana. If indeed I still have it. It's from anywhere from 88 to probably 91, and I might have gotten rid of it. And I don't even know that I have the magazine article anymore. I didn't do a very good job, and I still don't do a very good job of taking care of my stuff as far as interviews and things like that, and advertising work I've done. I don't. Now, since it got digital, it's easy for me to have it. But back in the day, you had to have a physical copy of it. And I never asked for that stuff. So if I happened to have it, I might have thrown it in a box. But even then, I'd be like, oh, this is a magazine. That's articles in it, but throw it away. And there was one point in my life where I purged almost all of my ancillary possessions, thinking, oh, nobody's ever going to want to see this. And I was right. Up until right this minute. Goat says, slacking Tom. It's just, you know, if you needed a copy of an old ad, and I have a bunch of my old ads somewhere. I have some of them, not many of them, in a valise and a portfolio in the next room. And then I have another bigger portfolio with more of them. But a huge amount. I mean, indescribable amount. You had to get a Velox or a Chromalin or a thing to have a copy of it. Or you had to get the magazine and cut it out, which I wasn't going to do that. So I think my LinkedIn page has a bunch of the digital stuff. And I have certain friends that are art directors and stuff. That's the other thing, is I was a writer for most of the time. I art directed a few things, but not many. My art director friends, you write the stuff, it gets approved, and then the art director takes over from there. And they have some of it, probably, but then I never had any interaction with. They set the type, they call the printer, they do the thing with the papa the bing. But when it got digital, now I have some stuff. But that's the work that you do digitally isn't as good as the work that you did for print, because print was more expensive and it lasted forever. And digital is disposable. It's really fast, and who cares, and not much media behind it. If you were going to have an ad in Sports Illustrated and Newsweek and Time Magazine, the advertising budget for that would probably be at least $1 million. So the ad had to be really good, and you'd spend weeks working on it, and it might be part of a campaign. Digital? Are you kidding me? I mean, it's still got to be good. It's still important. It's the way business is done. It's just a different mechanism of doing things. And some people still have to do print ads like that. It's not the way of the world anymore. It's different. It's different. Not that anybody cares. I wore my black and white flannel shirt for the Tom Waits show. I almost went out and got some cigarettes. I almost did the show entirely in a, well, Gold Scroat, she's got something to say. Digital litter, yeah. Festooning the American landscape with electronic folderol. But I did. It's been a fun show. I've enjoyed it. I don't know if you've enjoyed it. Hopefully our over-the-road truckers. Look, I'll admit, I have largely, constructed the fallacy that we have an immense following of over-the-road truckers in my own mind. I am not too proud to pander to that audience, because I understand they consume a lot of content over the road. Goat says, hell yeah, I should have busted out the cigs. Man, if I start smoking again, I'll never stop. So, maybe we can get into that area. But there's still people out there, I've been told, that listen to audio podcasts. And I know there are. Not everybody, while they're doing things, can watch a screen the whole time. And who wants to watch this? I don't even want to watch this. So let's see here. What do we got coming up on the big show? We've got tomorrow night. Oh, Star Trek continues. They finished the 5-year mission. Vic Mignogna and Vic Mignogna. Sorry, I think it's Mignogna. I'll have that figured out for the show. I think it's Vic Mignogna. Mignogna. I don't know him. I'd like to talk to him. Seems like a brilliant man. But they recreated Star Trek, the sets perfectly. The scripts, amazing. The acting was not imitations. It was just taking over the character. You go to YouTube, Star Trek Continues, 13 episodes. They finished the 5-year mission. You will enjoy it if you even halfway like Star Trek, the original series. On Thursday, we will do the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. On Saturday, we will cover Joe Ely, who passed away just today or late yesterday. I found out about it today, we'll put it that way. And then Sunday will be All in the Family. Yes. Let's see here. Doopa says, Tom, don't let Bob Levy influence you to smoke again. Well, on that note, on Monday, December 22nd, that's this coming Monday, Mr. Bob Levy himself, the Reverend Bob Levy, will be on this program, 7 Eastern, and we will again discuss It's a Wonderful Life, only we'll do it differently this time. I've devised a different way to do it. I've got that riz. Anyway, let's see here. Would like to thank the new members. I would like to thank Doo for the $5. Thank you so much. We actually made money this time. Terry Nee and the chef have become Gullerinos. That's really great. Goat says, Vic got a bad rep from a bunch of humpback freaks. I'll check out the Star Trek. Star Trek Continues. Well, we're not going to talk about it on the show that we do about Star Trek Continues, but I'll just mention it here. He got unfairly treated like very few people have in the world. He got accused of something and didn't get due process for it. And no real, it's just he got messed over badly. And luckily, he has rebounded from that, I believe. And I'm thankful that he has. So, anyways, any old way. With all that being said, like, share, subscribe, retweet, notification bell, all the free things you can do to help the show. Without I'm just looking at that old clock on the wall, and like the Reverend Al Green, I think it's time for me to get up on out of here. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And with all that being said, I think the only thing to say, other than our fabulous new Christmas song, is going to follow. Mariah Carey's people ticked off, man. They use bad words, and they're unhappy that they didn't get to record this song. But all I got to say about that is, till next time, we'll see you next time.
Snow is falling soft tonight, windows glowing warm and bright, but Christmas doesn't feel the same till I hear that golden name. Tom Gulley on the radio, spinning tunes that steal the show. It's a very gully Christmas, every heart begins to shine. Even spiders start to shiver in their webs like silver lines. Yeah, very gully Christmas. Hear that rhythm, sweet and good. Sweet and good. Bigfoot's listening from the treetops, grooving deep within the woods. dancing on the pane, candles flicker in the lane, spiders sway with all 8 feet, keeping to that perfect beat, and Bigfoot hums that mellow tune underneath the winter moon. It's a very gully Christmas, where the joy just rolls along. Spiders tapping in the rafters, Bigfoot singing to the song. Oh yeah, a very gully Christmas, feels like magic in the air. Tom Gulley's voice is smooth as snow, and it's ringing everywhere. Everywhere. Come gather round the tree tonight, let the music hold you tight. Every creature great and small feels that gully Christmas call. It's a very gully Christmas, and the world is feeling right. Spiders spinning festive threads, Bigfoot dancing